Hello, hello, hello. What's all this then? Well, in preparation for these forthcoming sound recording lessons, um, I've just serviced the SECK, which was really in a terrible state. There are 4 circuit boards inside there, 6 channels, 6 channels, 6 channels, and the master board, and every single one of the boards was caked in filth. It took me 4 hours just to clean the crap off. And then I've cleaned all the switches and all the pots. There's been a couple of casualties in the process of doing it. But all the pots and faders need lubricating now. They've been cleaned, but they need lubricating. They're a bit stiff when you use them. But I've gone through the channels and every single channel is working. Initially just sending to the main left-right bus. I'm now going through and checking all the channels going to the subgroups. All the channels are working, but channel 1, the mid-range EQ doesn't work. Not sure why. And that's about it. Just all the pots are really stiff because I put cleaner in. And they're clean, but they're stiff and they need lubricating now. Anyway, so I'm now going through and I'm testing every channel sending to the 4 groups. I'll show you some of the casualties along the way. Some of these caps on these switches are just, I don't know if I glued them on in the past, but some of them just wouldn't come off, particularly on this center board here. None of these would come off, and I didn't want to pull them too hard because I tried that over here. I was pulling one of the caps off the switches and the actual switch snapped and broke. So I need a new solo switch for there. And then I tried to get the cap off that switch, and as a consequence now it won't latch. These latch. Left. Latched. Unlatched. This one won't latch. Okay, not a huge problem unless you want to monitor the buses going to the left, right, monitor mix, monitor bus when you're sending out. But that's 2 casualties, so that's got to be replaced with a switch that latches. They're all Alps switches. And that solo switch has to be completely replaced. Then that pan control snapped off. Now that, I'll probably be able to fix that by just gluing the bit that snapped off with polystyrene, model aeroplane cement. It should just glue on there and that'll be okay. But that is about the only casualties I've had. The master fader is knackered. There's something wrong with it, but all the other faders seem fine. The master fader, for some reason, you can only get a good reliable signal when it's jammed up there. But further down here it loses it, so that fader really needs replacing. But that's as far as I've got with it. But I'm amazed that just giving it a really, really, really thorough clean has yielded like such spectacular results. Anyway, look, the reason I'm so keen to get this mixer going, I'm also servicing the Studio Master over here, so that's going to be fully sorted. That is, and I'm not using WD-40 by the way. Okay, that's for doing other things, lubricating, not for cleaning anything. So that's going to be fixed up. I've serviced the Behringer. A friend of mine spilled beer over it. I took it all apart and fixed that, except for one channel. The fader is gone on channel 5, but otherwise it's absolutely pristine. Gave it a really thorough cleaning and servicing, and that all works great. But channel 5's, the fader's broken, and that wasn't the beer. When it was standing on its side, leaning against the wall, I dropped something that bent the fader over, and it must have snapped something inside the fader. And you can't really get them off, so I'm going to see if I can get a spare channel board from Behringer. If they're cheap enough, I'll just put a new one in. Otherwise, All right, it's got one missing channel. Okay, so look, the reason I want this SECK working for these sound recording lessons is one thing that's really, really important about learning sound recording is the whole concept of buses and monitoring off tape, which is the core of all sound recording. And it comes from the days of tape, but it still is exactly how we work today with DAWs. Okay, so you have to understand that concept really well. This is an example of a split console with the monitoring all on the split side. But the reason I want the SECK is because it was the first budget mixer ever that introduced the concept of subgroups on the split side, but inline monitoring. In other words, the AB bus. Now, as soon as SECK brought this out in the 80s, all the other mixer manufacturers adopted that technique. SECK was purchased by Soundcraft, who then used that technique for the Soundcraft Spirit. Okay, which was one of the first consoles. It wasn't the first, but it was one of the first budget consoles that came along, incorporating that. No coincidence, after they bought SECK, they used that technique for their Spirit, which was a huge seller. But all other budget consoles since then have used that technique, including the Mackie 8 bus, 24x8 and what have you. So that's why I'm so keen to get the SECK going, because this was the genesis of it. This was the first console in the budget, because obviously inline monitoring on major pro consoles goes back to the 70s, when Neve introduced, the 56 series and Harris and the 32 series and what have you, although they're slightly different. But if you understand, with this console, I can teach the concept of the B-bus, and then I've got a friend who can lend me a Mackie 8 bus, and then we can look at it on that and a few other things. But isn't it a beautiful board, man? It's just a shame that they never... all the caps are removed, by the way. I mean, I've got all the... hang on. The caps, they need cleaning. They go on there like that. There's different colours. Cream for the EQ, blue for the pans, blue for the master gain, blue for all these. But these are incredibly stiff to get back on now. So I'm going to lube them before I put them back on. Yeah, it's the design of this. I've lost some of the XLRs in the process of doing it, and the reason for that is it's a really strange design. The way this console works, there are no screws along the top locating the circuit boards to the top of the console plate. These XLRs are riveted. The aluminium barrel is riveted, and the plastic XLR socket slides up inside the barrel. The plastic barrel is soldered to the circuit board, and it slides into the barrel, and there's a locating nut. You put a tiny screwdriver in that spare hole there and just turn it, and there's a little latch that undoes, and then these sockets drop out of the aluminium barrel that's riveted to the board. But some of them they wouldn't come undone. So I've lost some of the XLRs. I'm not sure how I can remedy that. I've still got the barrels. I've still got the barrels, but on some of them the latch has disappeared. There should be a latch that sticks out just below that, and it's just not there. So I don't know what the answer is. Anyway, that's where we are. Just to show you, there's one of the boards out of the Studio Master, and this is, this console is like the Behringer over there. The channels are on circuit boards, so 6 channels, whereas on the Behringer it's 8 channels, and the master channel board. On this console, it's 6 channels, 6 channels, 6 channels, making 18, and then the master board. But it's just everything's soldered to the board, whereas with the old Studio Master, every individual channel board unbolts. Each pot has a screw thread, and that goes through the surface plate and bolts to the outside with a washer and a nut. So you can get these boards out and really get into them and clean them. So I'm going through these and cleaning them one by one. One thing that's really doing my head in is I've lost my jack burnishing tool. I don't know what happened to it. I had a jack burnishing tool. I've had it for like 30 years or so, and let's give all the jack sockets a good clean. And I must have thrown it away with a pile of tissues, papers and used Q-tips, because I've looked for it high and low and I can't find it. And I thought, well, it's only a little burnishing tool. It's a little 1/4-inch jack, which has got a slightly rough surface, like an ultra-fine nail file. Very slightly abrasive, and you put some cleaning fluid on it. You ram it into the socket, in and out, in and out, in and out, twist it round, in and out, put a Q-tip in, give it a clean, and it's cleaned. And I've lost it, so I thought, oh well, they'll be cheap, I'll buy another one. They're 46 quid! Oh my God, can't believe it. Anyway, aren't they beautiful, these SECKs? They're such beautiful boards. I don't know why they don't make them anymore. Because for the size of it, I mean, look, there's my coffee cup over there. There's a 27-inch iMac there. They're small, but the facilities for the size of the footprint is just incredible. Anyway. So there is this place, GB Audio, up in Edinburgh, that sells SECK spares. So he's got some solo switches. And the solo switches are exactly the same as these latching switches for the group to master. So if I get a couple of switches, I can replace those. But why that mid-band of the EQ isn't working, I don't know. I mean, it's not critical. It doesn't really matter that it's not working. But it would be nice if it did. So it's obviously some component. And I'm not an expert in electronics. I don't know anything about it at all. So I don't know if it's a resistor or something. But something's gone. The treble works, the bass band works, but not the mid. So yeah, there you go. That's where we are, in case you're wondering. It's a shame about the XLR sockets. You can see where they were soldered to the board inside. It's such a piss poor design. It's clever, but whether that led to the downfall, because servicing one of these things, getting these barrels out of those aluminium surrounds, is an absolute nightmare. Even when you've undone the latch, you've got to get a piece of dowel and hammer it gently, like tap, tap, and get it moving out of the barrel. Then the whole board lifts out from the panel. But this idea of using a latch, why they didn't use a screw that you could get into from the outside and just undo a screw, why they used a latch, because obviously any latching mechanism is going to eventually go. And sure enough, that's what happened. Alright, so there you go. I'll be back with more shenanigans soon. See ya.